Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. My name is Rod, and I'm here to support Robert. Robert's on my turntable, one of my favorite channels. Everybody's channel is my favorite, but he's right up there. He's approaching 700 subscribers. I started to say 700 CDs. He may have 700 CDs. I don't know, but I'm here to do his contest in support of him. And it's kind of a fun contest. He wants us to show at least 5 albums that influenced us as a teenager. And I wanted to show this, Stevie Ray Vaughan, but I think I was like 20 when this came out, so it doesn't count. But this did really influence me, and I searched out the blues. I really got into the blues hard and heavy. So that's a very influential album in my life. But he wants us to go back to our teenage years. And I'm even going to go back like in elementary school. My brothers and sisters were like 10 years older than I was, 10, 11 years older than I was. So in second, third, fourth grade, I was digging what they were listening to. I had no choice to, right? Living in the house. Bob Dylan. I heard him early in life. And I became almost just obsessed with his voice. And other kids in my neighborhood and at school, they had no idea who Bob Dylan was probably. But I just thought this guy was great and just incredible. Another one in my house I grew up listening to was Johnny Winter, this magnificent human being, this Texan. It's a great album. This is not my sister's album, but she had a copy of this, and I would go in her room, like I said, in fourth grade and be just jamming to Johnny Winter. And Johnny Winter led me to this magnificent human being, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, he's the greatest guitar player that ever lived. There's no doubt. Johnny Winter may be my favorite. I loved him on slide, but Hendrix is the master. This album, I blew up in junior high school. I absolutely adored Jimi Hendrix. I had Hendrix posters on my wall. Huge influence in my young life. And when I was in junior high school, I guess 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I had a couple friends, but we just pretty much stuck to ourselves and we listened to our music. Me and Steve Fisher and John Chen listened to stuff like Hendrix. And then I discovered this album like in 8th grade. The Rolling Stones. I could get the cover out for you. There we go. The Rolling Stones, Goat's Head Soup. And this is the reissue that came out last year or the year before, you know, with all the new tracks, like Jimmy Page on it. And this was an insert that came in the album. And I had it hanging on my wall. And oh God, I love this album. I loved everything about it. It's still one of my favorite Rolling Stones albums. Huge influence in my life. Dancing with Mr. D. The song Angie. Big influence on me. I love the Stones. I still do. My favorite rock and roll band. Grateful Dead are up there too, but they're probably my favorite jam band. I love the Stones. I've been a fan of theirs since, like I said, 6th grade. Amazing. These guys still kicking ass. Another album that influenced me heavily was this, Bob Marley. This was his last proper studio album, Uprising. I'd never heard reggae before, and I was listening to WHFS. And a lot of you, not a lot, but there was a few of you that watched my channel that lived in that area, the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area of Maryland and Virginia, the D.C. area, who remembered WHFS. Wonderful station. They played stuff like this, and also punk and all kinds of cool stuff. But it turned me on to reggae, and that opened a brand new door for me. It was like a different culture. These dudes with dreadlocks and their drums. It wasn't rock and roll. What was it? It was still cool. It was reggae. I had no idea what reggae was, and that opened up a whole door and a whole nother path for me. So that was a very big influential album. Another Bob Marley story I could tell you. I had a picture of him on my wall. And in like 10th grade, so a poster, you know. So about 10th grade, a guy came over. We were, skipping school, having a few drinks. He's like, why do you got that guy on your wall? I'm like, you've never heard of Bob Marley? And it struck me, like I thought everybody was into Bob, but I guess not. Another album. I was about eighth, ninth grade, and this Willie Nelson album came out. Did not like country music. I loved this album. I bought this album. Always on my mind. Another song on here was First Thing I Needed, or The Last Thing I Needed, The First Thing This Morning. Fantastic album. It really turned me on to singer-songwriter. Not really country, because I tried to explore that. I couldn't get into it, but I loved his style of singer-songwriting. I grew up and I became a DJ. I was a music director for two different stations. In Texas, it was KFAN 107.9, KFAN. It was an Americana station. We were one of the first 13 reporting Americana stations there were. It really, it like sprungboard me into that career almost, because I love the singer-songwriter stuff. And with singer-songwriter, I was easily able to mix some reggae with Willie Nelson, the singer-songwriter. And with Bob Marley, you could take it into the Rolling Stones. And if you're playing the Stones, you could play Hendrix. So it led me in so many different directions musically. And I moved to Knoxville to work for WDVX 89.9. It was bluegrass and Americana. And I didn't stay there long, maybe a year, and I was their music director. I had a different vision. It's a long story. I'm gone, they're still there. Anyway, another influential album would have been, and this is early, I'm not going in order, this is early teen years, right? Teen years. The Ramones. The Ramones, man. These guys were grimy. They were dirty. They were nothing like my brother and sister would listen to. Punk. It was new. It was like, what the heck is this? And it led me into the Bad Brains. DC's own Bad Brains. And that led me into Minor Threat. And growing up, man, I thought this was just local music. I knew the lead singer worked at the record store down the street. I thought it was local music, but I was really into it. And that took me into so many different directions. Music has always been a big part of my life. And it's really weird now hearing people talk about Minor Threat. And I was talking to a friend of mine on Facebook, Dina Knowles, and we're trying to figure out where we saw them at. I think it was Rockville High School in the auditorium. Excuse me, and saying bands like Government Issue. So music has always been a big part of my life, and this was a really fun contest to show the albums that influenced us that I'm still listening to today. I'll tell you a funny story, and I've told this before, so forgive me for being repetitive. But this album I bought when it came out in the record store, End of the Century. And I remember doing the math, okay, in the year 2000, I'm going to be, 34. And I asked my mother, you think I'll still be listening to the Ramones when I'm 34? And she's like, if there is, there'll be something wrong with you. So, Ma, I guess there's something wrong with me, but I love you, Mom. Anyway, this is my contest entry for Roberts on my turntable. Do check out his channel. You probably already know him. Let's get this guy to 1,000 subs. Wouldn't that be far out? He deserves every one of them. Guys, peace and be good to each other.